this is Jenny from Just Being Me, and you're listening to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast, the show that inspires you to put yourself first.
Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness. Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness.
Welcome everybody, my name's Jenny Field, and here we are today on the Learning to Love Yourself podcast. We have the very lovely Sara Kedge with us today, and she is going to introduce herself and tell us what was the situation that made you think that you needed to start looking after yourself first.
Hi, as you say, my name's Sara. I live in North Norfolk, in the UK. You know what? I don't think there was one single point. I think there have been sort of points throughout the whole of my life journey where it kind of landed in me in different ways, that how I was organizing myself, how I was approaching my life, what I was thinking about myself was no longer working for me. So I don't think there was one definitive light bulb moment, but there were a series of them. And most of them came from or as a result of burnout, exhaustion, things breaking down, whether that was work relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, change in my life. It was just like, okay, something's not working. Something is no longer going to be good for you. Or you've got to this point because how you approach yourself, you think about yourself, how you organize your life is causing you harm.
So actually it was identifying that you were actually causing yourself harm.
Yeah. And when I talk about harm, I don't mean that necessarily in the sense of I was cutting or...
So you weren't doing yourself physical harm, you were just, things weren't working out and causing you mental harm in that.
Yeah, what I mean when I say not harm, or I mean it's like it wasn't the extreme acute harms, but what I was doing was sort of almost microaggressions to myself, which, sometimes I have had periods in my life where I have been overly obsessed with what I eat. And on the face of it, the diet that I was eating was the macronutrients and micronutrients were absolutely imbalanced. What I was forgetting was that actually that was taking over the whole of my life. And actually it's not long-term sustainable. And as much as it was physically feeding me, it was causing distress to myself because I was obsessive. But also it's not physically okay. You need a bit of fun in your life. You need cake.
Every now and then, everything in moderation. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because for some people actually sorting out their food, we had an interview earlier on in this year with somebody, and we were talking about the fact that actually food was the thing that helped her get out of her depression. So it's all about how you manage these things individually to yourself, isn't it? Because being obsessive over anything doesn't work, does it?
No, and actually, for me, and when at work, what I often do when I'm working one-to-one people, it's looking at the root cause, because obsession around food, exercise, obsession around the house being tidy and clean, anything that's occupying is a symptom that something else isn't really okay in the world. And actually it's walking back from, okay, so at the moment I'm overcompensating or over-concentrating on making sure that everything in my house is in order and everything is tidy and everything is clean. That's a symptom for me or something to signpost me saying, okay, hang on a second. There's something else not right here. And what is that? And it's almost walking back away from the habits that I had or the behaviors that I was going to actually walk back and go, okay, so what's going on? What is actually the thing that's causing me, or why am I finding solace and safety in making sure that all of my cutlery is facing in one direction? Because that's often when I talk about coping mechanisms, coping strategies, it's often more about actually creating a sense of safety, security, stability, predictability. And actually that's the indicator for me that something is not going on okay. And then you walk back to it. It's often around, when you walk back from that, it's often, for me, it's around not setting and maintaining my own boundaries with other people, not saying that's not okay, holding back from saying actually what I need is. And the symptom of that then becomes stress or frustration or conflict, which then puts me into a space of not feeling safe, secure, loved, okay. And in my beautiful brain then goes, okay, we're not feeling safe, solid, secure. We need something to make us feel that. Oh, okay. Tell you what, let's concentrate on food. Let's concentrate on exercise. Let's concentrate on the physical well-being. Let's concentrate on work. And throughout my when I had jobs, one coping mechanism for things not being okay is that I would put more effort in. I would do more. I would work exceptionally long hours. I would overperform. I'd volunteer for projects in the company I was working for. I'd then go and do study on top of that, or volunteering on top of the study in the second job.
And that's a very common thing, isn't it? And especially in the UK, because we are defined, or we're not all defined, but the general society is defining as we're a good person if we work hard.
Yeah, and I have a problem with this, because the notion that having a work ethic is, can I swear?
Yes, because we're X-rated, so we're okay.
It's fucked. And we've been given this since when we were tiny little babies. In when we were taught to play, we were taught that productivity, and if you work hard, you get your rewards. And actually, that's fucked, because what we're doing is we're giving the most valuable resources that we have as individuals, our time and our attention. And we're told if we give out this in spades, we get back. And actually, the experience of most people is that we give our time and our attention, our most valuable resources, over to a company. And what do we get? The promise of a promotion, the promise of somebody saying, well done, pat you on the back. And it's just,
And a monthly wage or a weekly wage.
And actually, because we say, actually, yes, absolutely, a monthly or weekly wage, and hurrah for that. Is it the same value as you put on this resource, the time and your attention? It's the salary. Is that commensurate with what you're giving? And most of the time, it's not. And
so for me, that would balance out in the fact that actually, if the job that I'm doing fills my cup and makes me feel happy, and I feel valued, and I feel worth, and I feel all of the positive things you can think on that side of things, then yes, absolutely, for me, that's it's equal. But if it's not, then no.
Absolutely. And this is where, so for me, I'm sort of flipping it over a little bit. I'm starting to talk a little bit about, do some thinking about, what if we didn't talk about giving people a work ethic? What if we flipped it over and actually said, if you think about your own worth first, what do I then give my most valuable resources, time and attention to? The things that fulfill my values, my needs, my self-worth. You create
very nicely into knowing exactly what is it that fills all of those for you. What do you do that we label as self-care, but it's just about doing something amazing that fills your cup up?
It's so many things. So I have a magic hour. So every morning for the last couple of years, I have a non-negotiable hour. It's my magic hour. Nobody gets that hour.
I love that.
And for my magic hour, I have a menu. You know, like you go to a restaurant and you have like starters, mains, desserts, coffee. I have a menu of things that I can do on that day. And that includes things like yoga, meditation, reading, gardening, making my bed, drawing. It's a menu of things. So there is no pressure on my brain or myself to go, I must do yoga every morning. I must meditate I must journal at least these many pages every month. because that creates a demand in, and it then stops being joyful. It stops being nourishing and feeding. So having a menu of, actually, this morning I woke up and what did I fancy doing? I fancy going to the gym and then having a good old disco in my kitchen. And that's exactly what I did, because it is freeing to say, actually, I do need to look after myself. That is non-negotiable. Every day I look after myself. What I do to look after myself, I trust my intuition and myself that I know what will feed me. So that's one thing that I do. But there's so many other things that feed me. Going to a bookshop. I have a favourite. I live in Norfolk, but just south of me is Ely in Cambridgeshire. And there is one of the best bookshops in the world. And you go into this bookshop and they make you a cup of tea.
Oh, yeah.
They make you a cup of tea and you can go and you walk around this bookshop with your cup of tea, browsing books.
I need to take my husband there. He would just be in his absolute element. A cuppa in his hand, looking at books. What more could you want in life?
It's such a joy. So it's finding those things for me that really bring me walking. I enjoy walking. So going out every day, and making sure I get some sunlight in myself. All of those things that really just fill my life with wonder and happiness.
One of the things that we're trying to do with the podcast, excuse me, is to get the understanding out there that actually self-care isn't just a bar, a face mask, going to a spa. Because whilst those things are, if those things make you feel really, really happy, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Actually, self-care is purely and simply lighting yourself up to filling your whole cup up. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. And there are two things that my brain's done. The first thing is about selfishness. And the second thing is about boundaries. I want to come back to the boundaries thing. Remind me if I forget. And this is the thing, because quite often I'm a cis woman. And as a woman, I've been told actually my worth is in how I produce things for other people, how I look after other people. And we are told from when we're very small that actually as females and as women, our role is to provide and serve and nurture and care for. And to do anything else is selfish and not our role. And it's not true. It's
absolutely not.
Bollocks. Because once we get to the point of realizing, if I fill my cup, if I look after myself first, if I make sure that my belly is fed with food that brings me joy, if I am sleeping well, if I am doing things that make me happy, I have an abundance of energy and attention that is available to give to other people. Self-care is the most selfless act that you can do because it produces abundance of energy, time, and willingness to give to other people.
It's something that for me, I'm really, really passionate about because actually, I'm in my late 50s now, and it's taken me till I was in my early 50s to recognize that. And to recognize, why am I constantly in burnout? Why am I constantly not feeling good? Why all these? And I had wonderful jobs and I was doing lovely things, but because, as you say, you end up working 20 hours a day because you want to make this worthwhile. I work for charities, so you give. Actually, until you start giving something back to yourself, until you make sure that you are completely full before you give to others, then it's just a downhill slope, isn't it, to that burnout?
And I worked for the charitable sector for many, many years. And one of the big problems I have with the charitable sector is this almost poverty mindset. We have to give everything out to everybody, leaving nothing left for ourselves as an organisation or individuals within that organisation. So then you're operating from an organisation that is in distress. And your individuals working inside that organisation are distressed because they're tired, they're exhausted, they're not taking care of themselves. They don't have the resources, either physical, financial, or material, to be able to give their best to the people and their beneficiaries that they want. And this is one of the things I struggle with. I get charity and I love and I've volunteered and I give my time freely to many charities. And it's at a level which doesn't compromise my own well-being. my own peace of mind, my own sanity, and my cup needs to be at a certain level in order for me to give. And that's when it comes back to that boundaries thing. And one of the things I've learned out every time I've burned out is I hadn't understood what boundaries I needed to set, which didn't allow me to actually recognize when they were being pushed, and didn't give me the practice of the skill to be able to say, that's over my boundary. That's not okay.
And that's not something we're actually taught, is it? Because very often, I know my parents didn't have boundaries in that way. So if you're not taught them by your family and you're not taught them by school, where do you find them?
And this is the self-development gen. And I feel really lucky. I'm a Gen Z. 1978 was when I'm just on the cusp. And I feel really lucky that I'm in this generation, because we're the first real generations that looked at self-care and actually did so in a way that wasn't. I mean, when I talk to older generations, my grandparents, you talk about, go to therapy and go to get coaching. They're sort of, oh, what's wrong with you? We're almost the first generation that's going, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm doing this to look after me and to get the most out of me. It's that flip.
I'm a big believer. I mean, obviously, you are in the same realm as I am. Because of what I do, I make sure that I have support, coaching support or mentoring support each month. And in fact, I very luckily do it every week, because I feel that morally that I need to be doing that. I'm listening to other people. So actually, morally, I need to make sure that I'm okay. But if I wasn't, I would still be looking to have that support every month now.
Absolutely.
That everybody should have a place where they can go and talk to somebody without any emotion attached, so they can say exactly what they like, because it's not going to come back at them at another point in time. You're not going to upset the person you're talking to because they're not related to you. They're not in your world. And I just think you need that space to be able to download your head and work out what's going on in your head and whether it's true or not.
And I think because in my professional world as a coach, that's so important, because my job is to be there for that other person, to hold space for my client. And I need that independent person to sit down and say, and reflect on my own practice to make sure that I'm not bringing my own shit into the coaching room.
Exactly.
I think the other thing that's really important, because as much as I pay for professional support with this, I think we underestimate, and I don't know when this really happened, the value of friendships and human connection. Because when we were at school, we had these friends, and then they dispersed, and then we got a new bunch of friends, maybe when we were at university or our first jobs. But as we get slightly older, and I've noticed this with people around their 30s, 40s, maybe into the 50s, when you've gone to do family things and gone to sort of like do your professional careers, your friends seem to shift and mold. And there's some research, I can't remember who it was by, talking about this generation, this mid-career generation, who lack friends, the people who they can phone up at the end of the day and just have a blurt at and have a conversation with. And I think that's a real shame. And again, one of the self-care things that I make sure I do is I make sure I make contact with the people that are important to my life.
But that's another thing that's part of your self-care, isn't it? Is identifying who are the people around you that actually make you feel good. Who are the people around you that fill your cup? Who are the people around you that are truly your tribe? Because there are a lot of people around us that are there, but they're not the right people for us. So there's a lot of take that goes on. And it's working out who's what, isn't it?
And you know what? There aren't those people in my life anymore.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that. Very pleased to hear. But it is a process you go through, isn't it?
Yeah. And it takes time. I distanced myself from a friend about a year ago now. And she's somebody who, as a human being, is absolutely lovely. She'd been in my world for about 10 years. And it got to the point where it's like, do you know what? That's not the energy that I need in my world. Yeah. And to be able to adultly and say, it's not about you being a horrible person. I just need to not be around you right now. I need to go and do another thing, and setting boundaries. And once and trust me, it's really scary, particularly with somebody who's been in your world for a long time. It's scary to say goodbye to somebody, but actually it's so liberating. And then you feel a weight lift off you, because it's like, actually, I wasn't good for that person. They weren't good for me.
And
I need to surround myself with people that will give me love, security, comfort, and tell me when I'm talking shit sometimes, because I do talk out of rubbish sometimes. But it's recognizing the difference between those people that feed you and those that drain you, and having the confidence. And it's a real act of self-care to say, you're not feeding me.
Yeah.
And I've had a friend who's distanced themselves from me because I'm not feeding them, and I love them dearly. And I recognize that right now we need to have space, and they may not come back into my world. They may not. I miss them, but I recognize that actually they've set a boundary, and I'm honoring that with them.
So how would you deal with them? I know that you work for yourself, but how do you deal with, because there are lots of people out there that are in places whereby you have to work alongside people that actually drain your energy. How would you deal with that?
Do you mean in the workplace, people that are sort of like energy vampires?
Absolutely.
I keep on using this word.
You don't get a choice. Sometimes in your family and workplaces, that's the place where you don't have that much of a choice.
Oh, you always have choice.
You have choice, but if you have to work alongside somebody who is draining your energy, what would you do?
And I've done this, and I've worked with people who just want to take my ideas. They wanted to take my time and my effort and my attention. And it's putting in limitations to this. You have the right to say, you don't have permission to dominate my time. You don't have permission to dominate my intellectual property. You don't have any right to have access to information I don't want to give you, except for that you pay me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have, if I'm working with you, it's okay for me to say, do you know what? I don't want to talk about personal things with you. It's okay. It's okay for you to say, do you know what? This is a working relationship. We're going to talk about this spreadsheet, this project, and that's it. If you've got somebody who is running in, and you get this sometimes, you get if you think about Winnie the Pooh, I read Winnie Pooh, was it Pooh and the Philosophers? Many years ago. It's a fabulous book. And they uses the story of Winnie the Pooh to describe characters in an office. And you get rabbits. For those of you who know, rabbit is somebody who's incredibly busy all the time, running around. I'm late. I've got to do things. We get that in every office. Just because that person is operating in a state of stress, anxiety, overwhelm, panic, doesn't mean you have to join in with that. You can say, I can give you what I can give you. What do you need from me? When do you need it? In what quantity? Okay, that's when I'm going to do it. You don't have to. One of my friends used to say, just because they're in the circus doesn't mean you need to be in the audience.
Absolutely. So for me, that's very much about fostering the ability to say no. It's the ability to put in boundaries, and it's the ability to get your words out, Jenny, the ability to validate yourself so that you know where you're okay for somebody to go and you know where somebody isn't. And limit your time with them. So there was a lot of discussion around this just before Christmas, because you have to there's always a choice there, but there's a difficulty when you meld families together, isn't there? You spend time often with people that you don't necessarily want to spend the time with. And actually, it's about setting strategies for that as well, isn't it? You can go for a walk after dinner if you want to. You can say that you just need some time out. You can look at taking some earphones with you and spending a bit of time. It's about, in my household, we have several neurospices in my household. So we're all quite aware of the fact that actually, say, for example, if my son's foot goes up, he's getting into overwhelm. So he needs to go lay on my bed, go do what you need to do to emotionally regulate yourself. It's fine. Because why would you push somebody you love and care about over that point just because it's a social occasion.
Yes. And I think there's something about, and in the UK, we are terrible at having honest emotional conversations. As a culture, something we're not really very good at yet. But your parents and your family love you and want the best for you. What if you had an honest, transparent conversation with them saying, I know you want me to come for Christmas Day. However, Uncle Frank is this, is that, and has this behavior. And the impact of that behavior on me is I come away feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, sad, frustrated, whatever it is. So I'm happy to come around you. What I'm not happy to do is to spend more than X amount of time, or I will come at this time before Uncle Frank turns up. So you're sort of starting to have this conversation with people that love you, care for you, want the best for you, want you to be happy, safe and well. So you're starting to have this transparent conversation and negotiate.
One of the really interesting things about honest conversations is people find them really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But once you start having an honest conversation, and it doesn't, honesty doesn't mean to be horrible. It's an honest conversation because you can only ever come from your own perspective. Something else can't make you. You have that choice. You come from your own perspective. So therefore, once you start having honest conversation, what that allows the other person is also to have an honest conversation with you. That is so freeing. That means you can talk about stuff without, trying to hurt each other. You're actually talking about, this is how it feels for me.
And you don't have to take on the emotion of the response. So if I said to my parents, I would say this to my parents, I'm not coming for Christmas. And that will elicit an intellectual and emotional response in those people. I have a choice to either take on that emotional response or to say, I'm going to sit here while you have this feeling. And then once that feeling's passed, we will continue this conversation. So it's allowing people to feel and respond and not feeling that you need to step in and rescue them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we start having honest conversations, it means it's an opportunity for people to be honest about themselves. So therefore, if you don't give people that time for the brain to consider what's going on, I'm having this emotion, and that will either be they're giving you that emotion, you absolutely know it, or they're thinking that emotion. And then there's the process after that comes in that goes, is that emotion true? Is this what I want to think? Is this what I want to feel? Because that's in their responsibility, and allowing somebody time to do that is one of the greatest things that you can give somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And often once you get over the emotional response and you can say, actually, this is how I feel. And as you said, my feelings are mine. They are honestly held. They are valid, as is anybody else's feelings. I may not like them. I may not agree with their logic, but their emotional responses are theirs and they're valid as are mine. So I'm allowed to feel uncomfortable in a room with Uncle Frank. I'm allowed to do that, and I'm allowed to put in a boundary that says I don't want Uncle Frank to impact. I don't have an Uncle Frank, by the way, to impact on my well-being. And I'm happy to spend time with you, but being in the room with that person is non-negotiable.
But it's also, you might decide, right, okay, if I'm going to spend time with Uncle Frank, and I don't have an Uncle Frank either, but if we spend time with said Uncle Frank, that you might say, okay, before I do that, I need to go for a walk. I need to go for an hour's walk. I need to do some meditation. I need to read a book that I love. I need to listen to music. Whatever those things are, to really make sure that your cup is full.
And one of the important things I want to sort of pick up on you, when I work in neurodiversity space, and I come into contact with a lot of people who are going through their assessment journey or their diagnosis journey. And one of the things that I invite everybody who goes to their assessment or their diagnostic journey, or whether they're having occupational health assessment, is to do two things. Number one, think about the time before the meeting. What do you need to do to fill your cup up or protect yourself? Do you need to have a plushie to hold on to, a fidget toy? Do you need to have your coffee in your favorite mug? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to listen to some reels? Do you need to dopamine for a little bit? And then afterwards, what do you need? How much time do you need to be able to recover from a really hard conversation? And for some people, it will be crawling onto the sofa underneath a weighted blanket, drinking hot chocolate and watching, I don't know, the Golden Girls on repeat to just recover yourself. So there's something really important around acknowledging hard things like Christmas or Ramadan or birthdays or bloody weddings. Don't get me started on bloody weddings. But after the hard thing, leading up, look after yourself. Afterwards, look after yourself. And sometimes that will mean after a wedding, I tend to book the day off after.
Me too.
Or out. It's just a non-negotiable, nothing is happening. And again, go to the self-care menu. What do I feel like? What do I need? Sometimes it's hiding under a blanket. Sometimes it's weeding. Who knows?
And the really interesting thing about that is that actually, if you went off and you did something physically hard and you knew it was going to exhaust you, you would probably take the day off the next day. And we now need to realize that actually, if you have to do something that's mentally hard, you have to do the same thing. We have the same problems. Mentally you get exhausted.
Or I mean, if we expand that, if we do something physically exhausting, absolutely, we might take the day off. We might need some deep heat. We might need to go and get a massage. We might need to go and see a physiotherapist. So it's exactly the same thing, but looking after our own well-being is just putting those things in, whether it's something I could self-administer, like rubbing deep heat on my legs because I've, lifted too many things, or going to a physio to go and get something more complex sorted.
Sara, it's been amazing chatting to you. And I just want to give you a little bit of space because we've alluded to your world. A little bit of space of what you actually do as a job.
And so I'm a neurodiversity specialist, and I work one-to-one with neurodivergent entrepreneurs, mostly giving them coaching support to help them design, shape and grow businesses that work in harmony with their brains. This is what we're talking about. I've been in businesses. Most of my people have been in jobs that aren't designed for their brains. We help them to design a work that works in harmony with them, which means giving them space to look after themselves.
Which is actually what everybody should have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So we will put all of Sara's details. So if you want to connect with Sara, we'll put all the details down below because she's given us a social media connection, and you can absolutely get in touch with her if you feel that she's the person for you. Please make that connection.
Please do. The other thing I do is I go into companies and do this. I go and work with companies.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I go into businesses and we have conversations about, I'm a Trojan horse. I'm not going to lie. I go in saying I'm going to talk about neurodiversity. What we actually end up talking about is creating a needs economy in businesses where we think about the humans inside the business and make sure that their needs are met. Because when you meet people's needs, they are happier, healthier, more productive employees. When we look at the sales process, if you meet the needs of your customers and potential customers, you get people who buy from you.
And we go back to that whole process of, if you fill the cup up, you are more productive. And it's just something we really need to get hold of. We really need to get hold of that and work with that, because it increases productivity in whatever way that you're using it, whether that's for you at home, or, so that you can get out in that garden. I'm waiting for the rain to stop for me to be able to get out in that garden and do all my bits and pieces, whether it's about that or whether it's actually in a job and, you're looking at it from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, everybody go connect with Sara. She's amazing. Great to talk to you. See you next time. Are you feeling stuck? Do you want to be able to create a better conversation with yourself, but just don't know where to start? I offer a free 20-minute session to see where you want to be and how to get you there. Just click on the link below. Remember, it's free. Book your space. It could change your life. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.